So, Larry, do you want to do an introduction for yourself, since Kevin's not here? Oh, okay. As Joe said, so Kevin Igarashi Ball, W4 at KIB, have been licensed for about a year and a half now. I think Dallas put me on the email as like a networking specialist. I wouldn't say I'm that. I'm a little bit more of a previous life was a digital plumber, as we kind of call it. A little jack of all trades. I keep the data running, but right now I do a lot of big data developer productivity metrics, things like that. So how to make sure people feel safe when they're doing the work that they do day in, day out for a 8,000 IT shop. So I'll hand over here.
Of course, you all know me. I'm Larry Whited, AB4NX, and I've been licensed a little longer than he has. 1969, probably about 55 or so years. And I started Aredn about a year ago, and I am not a network specialist, nor do I know a lot about it, but I've learned a lot over the period, and I'll tell you what, it'll get you so intrigued that you'll just stay up nights trying to figure it out, and eventually you'll be having so much fun that you have to pull yourself away from it. So anyway, I relinquished the job of technical coordinator for the ARRL because of wanting to prioritize our county, and it was a little more than I could handle on many levels. So I am a technical specialist and former practicing nurse at Emory University Hospital. So this is my hobby. So that's all I have to say.
Cool. If you have any questions, please see someone with a microphone, just so we have it on the recording, and so I can make sure everyone's questions are heard. But we'll hop right in. So let's see. There we go. For some reason, there we go. So Aredn, or the Amateur Radio Emergency Data Network. I don't want to freak anyone out over emergency. It is just, it makes a nice little acronym, but also it kind of comes out of the work that Ares does. It is built on mesh technology. So we're going to be talking computers, networking, talk a little bit about infrastructure. Please don't let me bore that with you. That's what the infrastructure does, is give us the ability to do all sorts of things. And when we talk about Ares served agencies and also beyond that, just who can we help with the technology we can have and how can we play with it? It is a self-healing mesh, so we've got a few antennas up today. It's a little overkill for what we need, but Larry and I can tend to roll that way a little bit. But really, this creates in this room all these resources are networked together without the need of the internet. So any resource that we have currently here, you can span this out over over these antennas over a lot longer distance than this and do the exact same thing. And we'll talk a little bit about as we get going. Why do digital communications matter? When you start talking about, I've only been in the hobby for a year and a half. I've dabbled in a little bit of all things. But if you look at making our roles as communicators, communicating large amounts of data over voice breaks down pretty quickly. And if you look at what our speeds are available via our traditional methods, so if you look at like packet speed is, VARA, which works really great. And for those late breaking, the FCC did just today announce that they're removing the baud rate from the digital, and it is moving to bandwidth, so that will now up a lot, make these speeds get up a lot higher. But if we start looking at networking equipment, we can go a lot faster over what has traditionally been, Part 15 Wi-Fi. What our ham licenses allow us to do is get extra power off that same equipment. So Aredn can go up to gigahertz speeds, traditionally over LAN, but if we're talking about what we have here, easily to 300 megabits a second, which pales in comparison. We talk about served agencies. Why does this matter? Why do they use day in, day out? These people are designed to use phones, laptops, computers, cameras all sorts of things that they use in their day-to-day lives. How do we plug in as amateur radio operators into that? If you have to come in and communicate over, hand off a message to me, and then I have to, either key it in, type it in, talk it, versus giving you a tool, and then I'm the one managing the infrastructure and helping do that. But all this is additional tools that we can fall back to. And I like to walk around. I usually have a lapel mic when I present because I tend to move, so I apologize in advance for that. As I said, why does this matter? It's another tool in the toolkit. It fits into where we already have today, and we're already living in a hybrid world. So if you talk about things like WinLink, we're existing in an RF to internet world. We can exist without it. We actually proved that this last weekend. So for those who participated, excellent fun doing some mountaintop packet runs. But this is designed really to fit into that infrastructure and allow people to have the assets of the internet without the internet being there, or if everything goes awry. So we'll talk a little bit about what equipment we have. There's a few different things that we have a little bit of everything in here today, actually. We did not bring a dish, but all this uses repurposed off-the-shelf networking equipment. So there's nothing special that's specific to Aredn. If it runs the open WRT stack, most likely it will run Aredn. So what you see pointed around, there's I think one on each corner up here. These are sector antennas, so these are designed for really more medium range communication. Think 3 to 5 to 10 miles. When we get into our dishes, those are 20, 30 miles because those are very tight beams. And then, do I have one? You get into what's in your local stack, which are things like these. This is kind of the ubiquitous workhorse of Aredn, which is the MikroTik HAP AC Lite. It's about $50. And this is basically a network in a box right here. This has everything you need for both 2.4, 5 gigahertz radios, 5 ports. Everything you need to actually do Aredn can be done out of this box. And we'll show a little bit about that later. I just completely forgot this. We have this here. So we talk a little bit about this when you get to mountaintops. Obviously, we go a little bit different with hardware. So we tend to go into a little bit more purpose-built antennas to make that work, using things like the Ubiquiti rockets or the power beams. Really, with all this, it's location, location, location. So you start talking to the people who are out in like California, works really great because it's flat land and then mountains. So you put one up on a mountain and everyone on the flat land can beam to it. It's a little bit harder when you get into the rolling hills of Georgia to do this because you tend to focus into the ground pretty quickly. So if you look at this, we'll actually show these a little bit later on when we have this. We got a couple Go kits in here, a couple different setups. What's available? As we talk about Aredn, we really start talking about the first pass is the infrastructure, so setting up all the connection links. The next thing is actually what are you going to do with it? It means nothing until you actually start using it for things like having to have VoIP connections, the ability to have PoE cameras to run events. We used it this weekend. We had off-grid servers allowing us to be able to communicate directly. With one station, we actually had a station go down, passed immediately handed off traffic, same forms everyone had been working on. Someone picked it up off the server that was deployed and could pick up right away while we troubleshot the other stuff. As I said earlier, it is we're using most of the stuff under Part 97. So that does, we can't have encryption. So you can't have any HTTPS traffic, even though, in theory, you could publish your private keys. That's not really allowed. SSH maybe, but try Telnet. But really a lot of this is going to be done in the clear. So really consider that. Same thing in ham radio. You can't obscure the message, so it has to be translatable unless you're staying local to the environment. So if you're staying just in the box and going to the WAN, then you can, in WAN, Wide Area Network. I apologize, they use an acronym. But you can do that without having, that can be encrypted, but we have to be really careful what we send out over the mesh. Larry, do you want to jump into what we're kind of thinking about, what we'd love to bring into Gwinnett?
Yes, we have several sites in Gwinnett County that could serve as the basis of a backbone. The saying in networking is it's 20 miles or one tree. So you have to kind of clear the tree not only with the direct line of sight, but what we call Fresnel, which is the way radio waves tend to bulge in the middle between 2 points. So if you start scraping that off, you're going to lose that bandwidth that you need. And this is an example of 2 hospitals, Gwinnett County EOC and our repeater site. I do not see the health department up there. They have expressed interest in this as well. So that is on the wish list for us to do in the long run. But starting out, we're getting people interested in networking and then work our way up to local deployments. The deployments are delightful with this stuff because it adds so much value, and we're very much looking forward to, for instance, our death race at the repeater. Well, okay, here we go. There's the repeater site. We have I can't remember the exact height of the tower, but the sad thing is that there's a little knob in between there and my house, so we're gonna. And I've talked to Barry Caney over at Alfred, and and Steve, and they're not opposed to us getting on that mountain. And let me tell you, that would open up Lilburn, and I know you'd be a happy man if that happened. So anyway, the idea is that we deploy, we learn, we have fun with it, and this isn't, as Kevin says, this is not all about serving an agency. This is about having fun. The priorities start locally at our homes. We are safe individuals. We take care of ourselves and our families. We take care of our neighborhood, and then we work our way up to things like Death Race and all these races. Bikula Memorial's another thing. So anyway, those are kind of the ideas, the local deployments, and then hopefully the backbone as time goes on. Back to Kevin.
I'm like trying to struggle with this presentation in web mode. Why did we pick, why did we start talking about these sites particularly? We're shooting this through the lens of Ares, where these are locations that we already support and have communication infrastructure at. But this also puts a great for opening up to doing actual relays for the greater community, because it's the same equipment used for emergency communication as it is used for regular traffic, and the ability to beam this out beyond there is great. And you may wonder, like, hey, I want to know more. I want to know how I'm going to get started with this, how I'm going to work with it, getting towards there. Just kind of wanted to lay the seeds of, like, here's some of the things we're thinking about what we could do with this. Come on. There we go. So some of the things we've actually already done with this. So Steve talked a little bit about JOTA earlier. We actually did some proof of concept point-to-point deployed there between the Ares trailer and one of the sector antennas deployed out in the pavilion. We did have, I think we had two VoIPs running and 2 different IP phones, as well as access to the broader mesh. And what does that mean when I say broader mesh? In this room right now, we're not, because we're tunneled back out, but it's an island. So if you think of Gwinnett County, you're probably talking about an island as well. Your connection to the broader mesh requires 2 things, either RF, so a point-to-point link, there's only, like we said, there's only as far as you can go as far as the signal, or until you hit a mountain, or you go into tunneling, which is where we go over the internet. And so right now we are actually tunneled through Larry's hotspot, as well as the internet here, to the broader mesh. So we have access to the everything that we are tunneled to, we have access to. So we have access right now to any resource that's available in Southern California, the Northeast, Chattanooga, Warner Robins. We have access to all of those. And if anyone in the room wants to connect, you connect to it, and you're automatically added. If you're in the room with an RF site, you're immediately on the mesh. If you need to be added locally or even over the internet, we can tunnel you. And so as we start looking at this and start thinking about how we deploy these, it really gets into these mesh islands that we connect via the internet. And so you can serve a community, you can go out broader, and then you use the internet to connect those. I wasn't there, but I think there was a point-to-multipoint connection at the Stone Mountain Hamfest when you did your presentation, Larry. So we did do multiple relay antennas to connect that. So this is stuff that we've been actively using or testing. And some things as we start looking at this is, okay, how do you actually use this? It's all fun and great to have it at home, play with. We kind of enjoy dragging. I think Larry brought 3 antennas. I brought 2 today, so it's a little overkill for the setup, but we play with that way. Think about things we already do. We've talked with Earl already about the Memorial Day parade. Imagine being able to provide camera support to the parade director. So the ability to see who's leaving the staging point, when the people walking in the parade show up at the high school, when you're going to be adding those people in, and anywhere they're along the course. So instead of having to ask over the radio, hey, where's these people? You have access to it not only from a laptop, but in a phone, access to the mesh. VoIP is nice. It's available there. We obviously have radio support, but the cameras really, a lot of organizations are already using it today to add that situational awareness of just having deployed cameras that can go in, be there, and be removed. Something that we've kind of been working with and actually coming up is adding these to some of the ultra marathons that I know working with Larry that we support. These are off-grid communications we're in the backcountry of North Georgia. So, how do you actually help provide that communication? But also just in a local, taking it not from a broader communication perspective, but local, how do you provide camera support for runners that come through maybe 10, 15 at a time that you didn't check? And these people are, it's 10, 15, 10 miles between aid stations over mountains. If you don't know where they are, now you've got 20 miles, you don't know where that runner's at, and maybe they're down. So the ability to go back and check that kind of footage and actually provide that to the aid station that's already there. We also have a lot of times that someone comes over and wants a status update and takes someone out of the running for 20, 30 minutes to provide an update. The ability to provide let them have situational awareness. This extends into talking about Aries activate, anything with Aries where you have a radio operator here and then you have maybe 4, 8 different people needing to get communication of that. You can then potentially put in an ingress point of 2 or 3 people taking data, putting that onto deployable assets on the mesh, and then that radio operator can just pull that stuff up, and now they're no longer having to listen to which is important, what is not. A lot of this stuff is not specifically, exclusively ham related. That hey, I can only do this with ham. This is a lot of it's networking basic stuff. However, this is allowing us, especially with the part 93 power that we get, a lot more power to go a lot further on these communications. And all this stuff is actually running off 12 volts today. So it's all battery deployable, which most people don't deploy that way. So we talked a little bit about how we do this, how do we connect everything. But all right, how do you get started? Why do I want to do this? And we'll get in some demos. The biggest thing is actually flashing all this equipment. So you get one of these, comes out of the box, and it has the MikroTik firmware on it. You need to get Aredn on it. We call that flashing. There's about 3 or 4 different vendors that we work that support Aredn. So there's the MikroTiks. We have TP-Links up there. There's a Ubiquiti in the back of the room. There's actually a little GLNet tucked over there as well. All of them pretty much follow the same flashing procedures. Read the manual because it's very specific about how you have to do it. But basically, once you get OpenWRT on these and Aredn, it's ready to be configured. And as soon as you configure it and you figure out the channels it needs to be on, which is well, most of us are running default right now, it's on the mesh, ready to go. You talk about, hey, okay, now I want to take it a little bit further. I want to take it into the field. We start looking at things like Go boxes. So this right here is one of those HAPs, as well as 2 power up converters that allow to power one of those radios and one of those cameras, all in one little box, powered off 12 volts. So this is we talked about doing, mountaintop to mountaintop portable. You take this, you take one of those antennas or a dish and you hike it up, you stick it to a battery, and you now have a point fully deployable. If you want to step it up a little bit, this is like data center in a box. Actually, what is in here, we used this last weekend. There's a 12-volt battery in here, a AC2, so it has a little bit more horsepower, a 5-port switch, and up converters in here as well, and a small computer, which allows me to run a server wherever we want to go. So we have our own NTP server, we have our own PBX, we have our own file sharing. Think of Google Drive, OneDrive. It's in the box, and that's all deployable assets that you can deploy anywhere and immediately put it on the mesh. Larry has got a couple examples on each corner of VoIP Go boxes. If you want to speak to those, Larry, you can.
Yeah, they are a combination of a camera over in this corner over here. There is a PBX for managing phones, so that you can dial a number and get the number. I have a list of what station has what number. Now, at the death race, for instance, 2 of the things we're looking at is not only the video situational awareness, but using the server and posting the runners as they are entered or received up on a large screen TV, so these people can know what's going on. And then they have a phone. They can call us, we can call them. So that really ups the game and allows us to offer them a lot better service. So those boxes have a battery up converter, and these batteries, by the way, are full lithium iron phosphate. And Kevin is being quite modest. Those batteries he built himself. So, I mean, we're talking started a box of cells and make your own battery, and that really helps you to format them in a way that they fit in a very small box. So I just want to give him that kudos. So my box contains PoE or Power over Ethernet plugins for those radios that you see up there. One of them has a PBX that provides the phone service, and another one has a chat server, so we can have that on the screen and we can talk back and forth. As a matter of fact, anybody in Georgia can. That's the thing that's very important about Aredn. If there is a resource and you have access to it, it's good for everybody. So it's cumulative. So you get a tremendous amount of hybrid benefit for him, radio operators. Back to you.
Yep. And kind of some things to get started on. Obviously, oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Just a technical question is, it's all IP based, obviously. When you're going out over the air, how is it identifying? Is it periodically sending a packet with your call letters?
So it does not send a packet, but every node has available to it a file payload that's on there that every Aredn node can request, and it's part of the device setup. It has to contain your call sign, and then as we get into when you define it, it's everyone kind of has a standard, but as far as, and why I'm saying this is every kind of mesh hub defines how they want the names to look. The one ubiquitous standard is the first part of that file name is your call sign, and so every node has that available to it. It's each as when anyone requested it, periodically requests from everyone in the mesh of like, hey, here's, I want to know who you are, and it will have that information that gets fetched.
I think he's looking for a keep alive type thing where the mesh does stay intact, and that's one of the features of mesh.
Yeah, and that's so part of the routing algorithm. When it does and figures out the routes, it has access to that file, and so it transmits that. Yeah, it's within a. Oh yeah, we've probably got a few different nodes in here, and so that what you see on your phone is part 15. So that's not ham at all. I don't have to identify it all via that because that's just standard Wi-Fi that you would have at home or here. It's when we start going out doing point to point and especially using more power, when we start leveraging that part 97 power, is when we start the hey, it has to be in the clear or not encrypted, and it has to be available. The call signs have to be posted, and so you have all that information.
Did you want to talk about security? Because we do interface with the internet. This system is designed to be an entire alternate to the internet, but we leverage the hybrid technology. But you might speak to the security with WireGuard and stuff like that.
Yeah, so the tunneling is done similar to a VPN. I don't know if it's WireGuard based. WireGuard is a tunneling methodology that's kind of coming up or has been in place for probably 5 or 10 years now, but really is starting to gain traction from a low latency perspective. And really what you do is you establish, unlike a traditional VPN that's more like server client, you have, they still call it that, but it's a tunnel, and so it's more of a peer-to-peer point discussion.
Yeah, so WireGuard is now downloadable as one of the assets on there. So that's part of the system now. So that's how some of the ways that you can be safe. But I'm not the networking expert, so back to you.
Yeah. I still wouldn't put I wouldn't hook this to your direct network or your home network directly. I'd be a little bit cautious because, anyone from the mesh can come back in on your side. They can't use your WAN unless you enable that. But always be mindful what you plug into your network at home. So.
To answer the earlier question about does the Aredn node identify itself, the answer is yes. It beacons every 5 minutes.
Yep.
Roger, I think I chose you, as a matter of fact, and for that very reason.
I knew it had the information. I wasn't sure that I wasn't sure on the regularity that it beaconed it, but I knew it had it. So we're going to get into some demos a little bit more on this. Getting started, obviously, plug for the workshop next week. We'll be here. You want to bring a HAP, you want to bring anything, want to talk in detail about it, feel free to kind of plug in. Arednmesh.org is the go-to site. They have done a fantastic job revamping their documentation recently. It is really easy to follow. If you are looking to jump in, first port of call is the supported devices. Make sure you get one that's on the list and not a sunset one. It's a little there's a lot on the list. A lot of the Ubiquiti stuff is starting to sunset just because of memory. So anything with 32 meg of RAM, yes, and that's those little devices are starting to sunset just because of all these newer features that are coming online. And then all the software is there. We can go into it. I threw a couple of YouTube videos on here of kind of an overview as well as some flashing steps, but we're happy to walk through those next week. Just a little plug, like, hey, this is great, we have it, but making sure like this is all fun to play with, but it's also super important that we're available, in case of emergencies to serve to help with people to serve, and so this is really there to help connect and be available. I think I saw a post. I think it was in the after action report. I'm not, or from the latest Invis activity. We're not going to be the ones there that have the giant cell towers and everything like that show up, but it takes time for them to get there. And so if we're available and have this infrastructure in place, I think that there was a good talk out of either the Nashville or the Knoxville group. They were talking a little bit about when the Nashville bombing actually happened. AT&T, lost all their connectivity. Their Aredn infrastructure was available the entire time. So I'll try to find that and post the video about that to the group's site. But there was a discussion about that they had full connectivity over their network, even though AT&T was down.
Yeah, just to put a finer point on that that he had up there just now, radios that we love to use and all that, will work both for our fun. They will also work for emergencies, and that's kind of what Aredn is. It's there for us to enjoy. But as always, our frequencies are granted to us because of the potential that we can be of help to our neighbors, to our county, and to our country. So 97 makes that quite clear. That's part of the responsibility. And as he pointed out in that last slide, every one of our repeaters in this county sit on a facility that is there because we have a relationship with our served agencies. So we would be in real trouble without those repeaters in this county. So we need to understand that, yes, ham radio is fun. You don't have to, be part of the emergency response team, but we are here to act in any way that we can to help our neighbors and to help our county people if necessary. So back to Nick.
So we threw this slide together just kind of give an idea of like, all right, if you were to build out infrastructure for the 5 or 6 sites we kind of talked about, like what would it cost? This is not saying, hey, you need to go put this in. You need $3,000 to $4,000 to get off the ground. Really, like I said, the HAP AC Lite, $50, or highly recommend go look on eBay because there's a lot of hotels that are currently changing out their hardware. You can pick them up for a lot cheaper price used if you want used. If you are trying to get into it, the AC2. But as we talked about it, like, hey, how much would it cost? So if we're looking at 4 or 5 sites or 4 to 6 sites, it's $3,000 to $4,000 worth of equipment. This is not, hey, I'm pitching this to Gars to go buy this. This is just giving you an idea of what it would cost for us to do this as we start looking at building this out. Leveraging batteries or solar, always having that backup is important. The ability to actually possibly get this granted to build this out if we wanted to build it. This is more of like, hey, if we're thinking from the ARES side of the world, the emergency communication side of the world, this is how we would propose it to our served agencies. But a lot of this also gets some of the fun stuff from the hams because it's same infrastructure, really. So, Larry, I saw you grab the mic.
Yeah, I was just going to say the Amateur Radio Data Corporation is a granting facility that organization that you can apply to for these kind of grants. There are served agency members in the area that have funds that can be applied to this as well. But we have to have a very good plan, cost estimates, and we have to have a existing proof of concept, which we are doing right now. The ARES trailer is being outfitted with this stuff. And it's just an inch at a time sometimes, but, we need a lot of people that have fun with this. And I'm finding people coming to me from all over Georgia, from places I did not expect. There are 28 people right now in northwest Georgia that want to get involved in this. They want their own PBX, they want tunneling, and so it is catching on really fast. And our hope is that we can tie all these together with a super node where we don't have to have serial tunneling all over the state, which is what we're doing right now. But I'll let Kevin go with that.
So if you don't, so the standard right now that we have kind of established for Gwinnett is your call sign, that dash the number of your unit. So that's just how many HAPs or how many of this device you happen to have. Dash a short model number. So if you see the HAP, that's the Mikrotik HAP AC2 or AC Lite. It's just you'll see you'll see a TPL 510 or something like that. That's the TP-Link 510s, yeah. And then dash Gwinnett County is kind of the standard that we've adopted.
And it's the AP part of it is access point, just in case you wondered.
Yep. Happy to have questions or any more questions, but now I would love to drop in the demo. Anyone have a mic?
Well, pardon me, I'm a CW operator, but what kind of what is being communicated between point A and point B, or between two units? Is it voice communications? Is it digital communications, photos, files, or what? I just don't see that.
So to boil it down, it's all digital communication. Now that being said, there's digital voice available over voice over IP. There's a lot of files of it that are available, but it's all digital based communication because it's TCP/IP. But whatever you can do via the internet, basically this allows you to do it almost in a private internet. Yep, exactly. And we'll actually, we can pull a few things up here in a minute. So I'll let you grab it, Larry, while I get started.
Yeah, there's novelty items like my bird cam at home, which I can pull up here, and my shop, which is a shameful mess because I've had about 3 projects in a row. I've had to come in and out of there, and each one messes it up worse. And, we talked about the surveillance with the cameras. It provides situational awareness that's so important, but it's also, for us geeks, having things that work for you and that you can play with. Now, the phones are high fidelity phones, much better than you get on your cell phone or anything. I mean, it's 10, it's really high fidelity. Sounds wonderful. You'll be surprised if you've used a VoIP phone in industry. It's basically the same quality. So other assets. Yeah, like I was talking about, posting data up for people to be able to be situationally aware where these runners are. We have people come up to us and ask us, where is so-and-so? Well, I'm a little worried. It seems like it's been too long, and we can go back and look. But if we posted that data up, they wouldn't even have to come over. They could get that data. And, it's... I guess Kevin and I and many others have this instinct to try to make what we do have a purpose. And the purpose is to amuse us, but there's a limit to how much you can amuse yourself. Eventually, you're going to say, now, why am I doing this? And the beauty of this is that we do have a purpose. We plan to help other people with it and to share in the enthusiasm. And the community, when it grows, we're going to be happy and enjoy our fellowship together as we learn this stuff. Go ahead.
I was looking to see if there was any questions while I was trying to rapidly pull stuff up. So cool. So this is the local node. So my laptop is currently plugged into that black box right there, and so you can. This basically gives a quick overview of what you can see, how I'm connected, with which gateways I'm connected, what my local access is. Actually, Chris is connected over probably a few. Well, and Alex mentioned you can see that field Aredn Wi-Fi access, but you can see overall I'm connected to over 235 nodes with over 600 devices that are connected to. So if we go into the broader mesh, what this box is connected to is available up top, and I can make that bigger. Sorry about that. So you can see what I'm locally connected to or what I currently serve. So this is my field box. It tends to serve 2 cameras, a server that also runs all these other equipment. And we'll kind of look at, if we look at like Nextcloud, this is kind of what we used this weekend for the packet run. So this is a local available cloud server that's running on that server in the box. And so we kept all of our ICS templates in here to do all of our communication, our logs. We've got a few photos, I think. Yeah, so we've got some of the photos that were there. We've got our signal reports, everything that was there. This was available to anyone that was in that tent with us. So there's 3 different laptops had instant syncing ability to this. That was just in that room. So if it's in the broader mesh, anyone on the mesh has access to those files without the need of Google Drive or OneDrive. It's available on the mesh. If we go a little bit further, now we start seeing who I'm connected to. So in the very back is actually another HAP that's in one of those orange boxes that's actually connected via these 2 TP links. So these 2 devices right here point directly, point to point to each other. That's got 3 to 5 miles of range with considering line of sight. But that will connect those two HAPs beyond where they're available. And then you get down here and you see everyone that I have access to. And so this is using that tunneling feature where I connect to Larry, Larry connects back to home, and Larry's home connects to his tunnel, where we talk about tunneling, serial tunneling, it's multiple hops. But we have access to everyone else's resources. So their PBXs, their mesh chats, we can pull up, the Southeastern Mesh, what their information is. We can have a chat program running between all of these different islands, or even nationwide, talking to each other completely over the mesh with some internet tunneling.
Question.
Go ahead.
All you got in there is a microtik
There is
and your laptop here?
that's in this box, right in the orange box is just a microtik and some power converters.
Oh, that screen there, is that the camera in the back?
That's the camera in the back. So
Okay.
that is this box. It actually has two paths, because this box, the HAP in there and the HAP up there talk together, as well as these two radios talk together. Hopefully it's going over the top one because the link's better than what the little HAPs are doing. But that is going to that camera up top. And
So if that unit back there in the yellow box and that camera and that, what is that, the Wi-Fi?
yeah, so the two,
I forget the name of it. Ubiquity.
the two TP-Link antennas.
Okay, they're TP-Link antennas. Okay. So if that was up at on top of Stone Mountain, and that was showing us a picture from that camera from the top of Stone Mountain over our link into this network
Yep,
Yes,
without
sir.
using the internet.
without using the internet.
Okay.
If
We've created our own internet using these devices and this software.
Correct.
That's the goal. Is you put even bigger antennas. Typically, you would use what's the Ubiquity Rocket, which is technically just the chips out of here with the antenna ports, and then you put them on big sector antennas, and you use that to actually beam.
Yeah, point to point, we'd probably use some of the more dish type antennas. Microtik, I have a 27 dB Microtik dish, and that puts out probably effective radiated power about 600 watts. So it gets down the road a piece, about 20 miles.
Okay.
But then you have the aiming problem. So the downlinks to people that would use it would be done with 3-sector antennas, and that way we could serve him and all the people in Lilburn from Stone Mountain and many others in Atlanta probably.
Yeah. It uses 2.4 or 2.5.
These are using 5
These are
gigahertz.
using
So
5.
you can
said these are only one set.
So you can use, technically, you can use 2.4, you can use 5, and then there's another one in between that most people don't.
But can they use them both at the same time?
You can use them both at the same time, but they're not going to work together. They need to be a matched pair.
Is there a bridge?
Yes, yes.
You can set up a bridge between them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
DTD does it. Yeah, just
Okay.
direct plug-in.
Yeah, so with this box right here, technically that's providing the 5 gigahertz link. The access point that's in there is a 5 gigahertz access point, and it's doing its own mesh on 2.4. So you have a local mesh, and then you would use your 5 gigahertz for your long haul to bridge.
Yeah, it's 184. The channel is 184, and that's one of our exclusive amateur channels. We have quite a few of them, and it's much quieter on 5.8 than it is on 2.4. It's really kind of noisy. And we only have one channel that we can really use on 2.4. It's -2, and that's the only one that's exclusively ours.
So this is just one of the maps that one of the looks like probably coming out of one of the Tennessee groups of where they are pulling this map. And this is also using that file that's available on each node is what creates these maps. So they're self-discoverable, but they're also able to understand how far they are away from each other and use the proper connectivity.
So for this demo, we're just in this room with 1, 2, 3, 4 setups.
Yes.
So if we separated these, say, 5 miles between these antennas, these setups, we would have our own internet.
Correct.
Now, would anybody be able to take a system like this in their car, go out at a site, and be able to connect to this network?
If you knew so you need to know where the beam where you're connecting to. But yes, there's no config as long as, and this goes into the planning as far as you rolling it out, is thinking about our channels and our channel bandwidth is part of that engagement of like, all right, our Gwinnett uses this channel and this bandwidth, and so we all know that, we all agree upon it, and so you go out in your car. I don't have a photo on it here, but I've done it. I've got a drive-on mast, put a mast in it, shot it up 20 feet in the air with that white Ethernet cord, and you can point it anywhere you need to and hit the connectivity. As soon as the power comes up, within 30 seconds to a couple minutes, you're connected to the mesh.
But only the antenna is pointed that way.
Correct.
What if you wanted to set up an antenna that you could do 365 degrees?
You could do you would need 3 of those.
Okay.
So you would take a box similar to that. You would need a AC2 because you need to tell the HAP, or yes, you would need an AC2, or you could do it with a dump switch. Actually, you don't even need a HAP in this case. This is just like, hey, I want to be able to ingest off one antenna and beam it out the other side. You could wire all these together over a switch.
HAP. What's HAP stand for?
HAP is a little MikroTik box, which I've set down somewhere
Okay.
in my little...
But the last 2 letters are access point.
Okay.
Yeah. So a lot of people use these to interconnect. It's a switch.
right.
The newer ones, you can define each of the ports to do what we call DTD, which basically says, hey, I'm directly wired. Cool, use it. But if you just wanted to provide 360 interconnectivity, a dumb switch with a dumb PoE switch would be all that you would need.
That
Okay.
that one back there has 2 Ethernet ports. One of them is the PoE. The second one, you can hang a second radio. I've plugged a telephone into it, powered with a battery, and used it. It works fine. It
Okay.
doesn't take much. And then you can plug your computer into the telephone, and
Yeah.
then you got
So let's say that box over there was at the hospital, and they didn't have anything they needed to do all of their networking. Could they bring a network cable up and plug into your?
in
app.
theory, it's a long cable, but yeah. It's,
Okay.
And
And
Yeah,
then
these-
everything that they had on that network, if it was DHCP, they would only get a certain number of addresses on there, right? Who's calling the phone over here?
Oh, that's Brett. Answer it.
Perfect timing.
Okay. We had a scheduled call coming in, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
Brett's
how did he get into your network? Do you have a
tunnel.
you have a tunnel
Yes, sir.
out of this building over public internet
Yes.
going back
I have.
so that he
a,
can call in here?
Yeah, I have a,
Okay.
a hotspot.
You're good, Joe. It worked. So yeah, it was all squeaks. It, is it? Yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes. Exactly. Not. Yeah, it chooses the shortest distance, and
On the-
it's an algorithm that figures that. Yeah.
Yep.
Now for the main halls, we probably wouldn't use the mesh. There's another thing called Hamnet, and it's a managed network, which is less overhead. Mesh has some overhead in doing all that management, so we would probably use a very similar to Part 15, but amateur channels. So that would be the
Okay, we had another question over here.
Yep. To your scenario, David, where you're talking about, hey, at the hospital or EOC or whatever, hey, I need to connect my network to that. What you would probably do is you could have wherever their network ingress is, so you got your, cable modem coming in here, their satellite link and whatever, they could in theory have a link plugged into to Aredn always sitting there, and then you could literally say, kill this.
That'll
kill this.
never happen.
It would never happen, but that's in theory you could do that.
Yes,
but that's,
we know it won't
yeah,
because we've
I'm telling
already
you,
been
like,
there.
this is how I would do it, but you can't do that
Yeah.
for all sorts of reasons.
He asked if we would put up a 365-degree circular antennas to cover things at the repeater sites, and unless they take equipment off those towers, we can't put anything else up there because of wind load, right?
They don't have to be.
It wouldn't do any good if it wasn't 360. People we couldn't go out there and connect to it so it could move it on around the county. Yeah. But it'll never happen because there's no access up there, space. Yeah, John.
I'm gonna cut to the chase. Next week for the workshop, what's the intent? Like if I want to get started in this.
Yes.
So is this a great opportunity? And then cut to the chase. What do I need to buy?
So
Just to get started. And I'm thinking it's like the MikroTik router. And I'm talking to Hal here about this. Which one should I get?
So the intention for next week is if you want to come for a deep dive, but it is literally laptops, switches, flashing firmware, getting you set up and connected. If I was to say one piece of equipment that you would buy is the MikroTik HAP AC2. The light is out there. It is the cheaper version. Spend the extra 20 or 30 bucks for the 2 because you get gigabit Ethernet on each port, as well as it goes from a single core to a quad core processor, much more RAM. It's a much more efficient unit and future proof. But that would be what I recommend.
So that's the AC2.
The AC2.
Are there different versions of it within that AC2?
No, there is. So there's 3 versions of the MikroTik HAPs. There is the AC Lite, which is whatever I have sit around, and this is my ADHD sitting around. Is that or that? So that's the international version. This is the US version. The AC2 will look exactly like this, except it will have a 2 here. And that is the newer generation that most people are replacing, is what we recommend for most people to pick up. The HAP lights are great to get started. If you're buying, or if you already have it or get a really good deal, I got a deal on like 10 of, or like a lot of them for like $10 on eBay. So I have a stockpile. So that's how I can build all the boxes with. The 3 will have antennas off of it, and it looks more like a traditional device.
I see it on Amazon.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend. There's no reason to jump to that because those are only going to give you your local mesh, and if you're really going to go broader, you're going to one of these or to a dish. So to get started, a HAP AC2 light or a HAP AC2.
Where's the best place to get them?
Amazon.
AC2.
I just got one for $60.
Where?
Amazon.
Okay.
And the other thing that's different about the 2 from the light has a pass-through PoE, which means that you can actually turn on the power. It's not that much. I don't think it's worth it. It's not present in the AC2, but we always use our own power anyway. And the configurability of every port is far more worthwhile. You can put anything on any port.
I'm just thinking ahead to next week. What do I need to get started? Because I've wanted to do this for a while, but didn't plunge in. Yeah, Christmas present to myself early.
Yeah. And I would bring up the camera. It's the fact that we've got so many links that I think it's freaking out the routing protocol a little bit, because that's dual linked right now, and so it's not coming up well.
Explain the phone.
Yeah, so the phone, so it's using voice over IP. We are able to. Larry is actually running a PBX, a public. I can't remember. branch. I was like the B exchange. I was like public blank or private blank exchange, and I can't remember what the B was. But basically, lets you set up your own extensions. You can do direct to direct IP dialing without the PBX. It's a little bit more annoying knowing all the 4 octets, but you can do it. But it basically lets you set up whatever extensions you want. It can manage it, and then a lot of people on the mesh have actually set up basically area codes, and so based on the area code, you hop out over the mesh to someone else's PBX and connect to their phone extensions.
I have about 12 people on now. I can put up to 100 on my PBX. So anybody that gets interested, you might want to talk about the phones. I'll let you do that, but our recommended phones.
Yeah, the ones most of us recommend are the Grand Streams, or the go as, or you probably have more, but there's don't go. You don't need a fancy phone.
You can use
this.
a 1620. It's a single line phone. Most of us have gotten a 1625, which costs a little more. They can range anywhere from $30 to $60. Just wait for the deal. Buy it. I have 6 of them now. Yes, sir. Bang. Hit the order button. Yes. So the phones, the 2 lines are a good idea because you can put your Hamshake hotline on the other side. They're very easy. We'll demonstrate how to set a phone up next week too, if we have time. And I've asked a gentleman in Atlanta to come by and help. He's obviously very smart. He managed to get his up in no time flat. I sent him a tunnel, and in minutes he had it up and running. So anyway, yeah, we can do the phone demonstration. That's the thing about the Grand Stream. It's extremely easy to program. So, and it provides most everybody on this network uses Grand Stream. So it's a lot easier to tell people how to do it.
So I would say there's the initial configuration, which is probably what'll take the is the, hey, making sure they're all given the right host name and set up that way. That can be done without being there. The easy part about the mesh is once it's there, it just connects. As long as you've got line of sight connectivity, it's a matter of just putting them up in the air and making sure the beams are pointed the right way. So
the cameras might be a problem. I mean,
No, line of sight will be the problem.
Line of
Yeah.
we're looking
Because of the trees. We'd have to be at least 100 foot at each location.
yeah.
well, we can do a serial connection too. We don't have to do it all at once. We can go zig and then zag, and yeah, it works. That's been done. Right. That's fine. That's easy.
There'd probably be about 10 in between that to make it work better.
Well,
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
pretty close to having that right now. So now the thing in this room is we have killed our signal. There's far
Oh,
too
yeah,
much
we
RF
have so
in here.
much Wi-Fi in
Yeah,
this room.
it's a
that
mess, and that's
it's a
why I
mess.
lost that camera and all that stuff. It all just broke down. So we kind of defeated ourselves. But anyway, those cases are running on 12-volt batteries. There's no power hooked up to any of it.
What size power battery?
I have an 18-volt, a 12-volt, 18 amp hour. They're about, I think 2 of them is like $80.
And how long does it last?
Oh, all day.
24 hours?
I probably wouldn't want to expect that. We can, we always have the plug-in where we can plug in anywhere from 60 to 200.
So to give you an idea, this box right now is running a computer, a HAP, a switch, and an AP, and is currently pulling 1.29 amps.
Okay.
So it's if you're not pulling computers stuff like that, you're about an amp. So I know we're coming up on time. Any other questions? Plug the workshop, Glenn. Cameras?
Yeah, what type of cameras are you using? I mean, what's the typical use case for the cameras?
So it's any IP cameras are great. Most of them will pull 48 volts, which means you need a DC boost converter to get it up from the 12. About an amp they usually pull. Would recommend. I mean, you can use a 4K. 1080 is probably enough to get a good enough image for what you're needing, and also not to oversaturate the mesh. And what a lot of people are using for is just for, like, I've seen for parades or for public events. We've seen them in Southern California to like just have up on a tower so you can watch for forest fires or stuff like that. They've been able to pull them up and just use the direct link. And then the general, just like, it's fun to have the equipment, but that's usually a lot of what people are using it for.
We're using 12-volt Amcrest. They're very good. I tried some of the off-brand from China, and I had a lot of trouble. This one is very, very reliable if we don't congest the net so bad that it doesn't work.
Yeah. Your IP cameras, make sure you can change the IP address in there or from DHCP, whatever you need to do. So, yeah, Amcrest is an excellent brand to work with.
Yeah, and they get their IP address from. So the workflow is that you get the HAP up and running, and then you start plugging things in so that it gets a chance. And this is why this AC2 is so much better. It can handle a lot of stuff at once.
Mark, are you still on the network? I'm
Yeah, I
still
saw
routed through you? Or okay. You do, Larry? I thought I tunneled to you. Okay. You should see my HAP up there, right? From the house.
We can what? Did you?
Let's see.
Yeah,
What?
it's on there. He says
Okay.
he saw it. Yeah.
All right.
Right. And I've sat here and watched it drop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's sometimes more is less.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, everyone.
You mind if I say just one more thing? I know you do.
We have a camera.
There's a reason why I chose this guy, because he knows what he's doing, but he represents our future in ham radio. This man is in his 30s. He's a Y generation, and this is ham radio of the future. So I hope you all support these young people like Chris and Kevin. They're amazing. This is all I can say for them. Okay.